Ooh, look guys, it's a fun new angle. I have now discovered though, if I want to record like this, I really need one of those desk clamps for mounting your mic on. Currently I've got the mic sort of at a weird, funny angle, and I need to remind myself that I'm gonna have to keep trying to talk like this. Hi guys, it's Emma, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, then welcome to the chaos. I do all things music related on this channel, from putting up covers and show reels to show people what I'm like as a performer if they want to book me, to my favourite style of content, production and songwriting styly content. This involves everything from gear reviews through to something like today, where I'm just going to look at one of my favourite features in Logic. I am a Logic Pro user, mainly because I started off on GarageBand, and the learning curve from GarageBand to Logic is not anywhere near as extreme as it would be for anything else, because GarageBand is essentially Logic Lite, let's be honest. But there are lots of things I really love about Logic. They have this thing called the Logic Drummer. I'll show you it here now. If you go to add a new track, so you've got new audio track, new software track, new drummer track, and new external MIDI track. New drummer track is the one we're talking about. If I add this in, you get the Logic Drummer. What is the Logic Drummer? It's basically a bunch of samples, one-shot drum samples, and it combines them together into these loops, essentially, that get programmed into your project. It's not like just picking out a loop off of Splice and throwing it in, because obviously that's one loop that you then can't really change unless you just chop it up and move the audio bits around. It's a lot more like those UJam plugins that I was talking about in another video. If you want to see that video on those plugins, then that'll be popping up on the screen. In that it creates the loops from the one-shot samples to then customize to your track. So this has created a loop here of drums. And you can go in and change the various settings on this to get different drums. It's handy for all sorts of things where you want to throw drums in pretty quickly, because like I said, you just click that on and then you change the settings and you can get some decent drums. So let's just try and make some drums for this first section here. It's a bit loud. Overall, the feel of that, given this is a verse. In fact, that's an intro, so what you would then want is you can split it into the sections you want. So obviously I want this section here to be a bit different from this section, because this is an intro. So you can see it's put in a basic drum loop there, including fills. So you can change different things about this, like if I didn't like that hi-hat pattern, I could just try this one. Change the kick and snare pattern. Actually quite fun, isn't it? And it does fit relatively well with that. Just for context, this is a song that I did for a different video. A couple of weeks ago I did a rewriting a song from my childhood video, and I did a quick acoustic recording of this song. So I've done a decent recording of the guitar, which is why I've got 3 guitar tracks here, but the timing isn't quite right, because I wasn't really that worried about this acoustic recording being perfectly in time. So that's what we're going to add drums to today, just because I figured that was a good track to use for this. I also find this really handy because sometimes I will really struggle to record to a click, and sometimes just programming in with any generic drum plugin, a quick kick snare thing, will be enough to help keep me in time. But if I'm doing something with a rhythm that doesn't really follow a kick snare sort of pattern overall, then when I'm playing guitar I find it really hard to get the rhythm right and to still get the vibe right. Because, you know, it's one thing getting something perfectly in time, it's another thing getting it perfectly in time and not having it then sound quite robotic. And I find that really hard to do to something that doesn't have a drum beat that is following the right pattern. So quite often I will throw in a drum that is going to give me the right feel for the song to then play guitar along to. And then I can start building on the track from there, and I can change up my drum pattern after, and I will often use the Logic Drummer to do this. And that's what I wanted to talk about mainly in today's video. I feel like I sort of skipped over the intro for this video and just dove right in. Not just why I like the Logic Drummer and how you can use it, but how to actually get the most out of the Logic Drummer. Because I would say overall, this is a good tool for building things quickly. It is a terrible tool to use for your final drums without doing anything else. Overall, it's kind of generic what you get from these drums. That's not that interesting, and the sounds themselves are, you know, there's only a small selection to pick from, really. It's not going to give you that versatility and that novelty that you really should be looking for in terms of developing your own tracks. You don't want to get stuck using loops of stuff that have been used 100 times before. It also just, it doesn't sound that good. Honestly, these drums, they sound good now. You know, they sound good now like that, but trust me, as you go and build in the rest of your track and you add other instruments, those drums are going to start to sound really lacking in comparison to everything else. So I'm just going to quickly build up a drum pattern from here through to the end of the chorus for us to work with. I won't do the whole song because that would take a while. And then I'm going to show you some of the ways that I then play around with what the Logic drummer gives me to create something a bit more unique and a bit more different. Okay, so we've got an intro bit here. I think those fills are a bit much, so I'm just going to bring them down and see what that gives me. Okay, there are bits about that I like and bits that I don't, but we'll come back to it because that's good enough as far as I'm concerned. It's fitting well. But let's do this second section of this verse, this sort of pre-chorus section. So the first thing I'm going to do is bring this down to be softer and simpler, I think. I'm just going to bring it over to softer and simpler and see what it gives me. Actually, we don't really want it softer, do we? So I'm going to turn it back up to a bit louder. We really want something different there, so I'm going to bring this back. Because sometimes even just changing the length of the section can give you something better in the drum part that you want there. Yeah, we don't really need a fill there, because this bit, really, I want to be almost entirely fills. So I'm really going to crank it up here and see what we get. I know exactly what she wants to say when she saw that star. Oh, the fills are a bit much, aren't they? Don't like this fill at the end. But I will fix that later. I'll see if I can maybe create a different fill somewhere else to put in, or I'll just make something myself. And then I won't do this bit here, because I think what I'll want at the end of the chorus here is probably pretty much the same as what we've got up here, and I don't want to just try and add that in here, because I won't necessarily, where you are in the song as well can help the Logic drummer figure out what to do, so it won't necessarily give you exactly the same as what you've managed to create over here. Plus it's hard to get your settings exactly the same, right? Again, you can't just really copy and paste this. Sometimes if you copy this and paste it over here, it will change what that's actually doing because it's in a new section of the song anyway. So we're going to leave that there as is, and we'll deal with that copy and paste job in a second. This is our little drum part. Right, so you can convert the drummer track that's created here to MIDI to then edit and do as you please with. So that's what we're going to do. So right click and you go down to convert, and you go down to convert to MIDI region. Boop! MIDI region. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this bit here that we decided we like. We're in the score. We want the piano roll, thank you. I'm going to copy that. Come on, C. Come on, V. Paste it there and see if we like it there. Play it from there. See, bits about it are working there, but bits about it aren't working. And we'll see what we're going to do about that and how I'll edit it in a sec. But we're going to go through the song now. The first thing I'm going to do before I do anything else, I'm going to select all of this. Command all. Because I don't like, one thing I don't like about the Logic drummer is the way that it humanizes the drum velocities on each of these little MIDI notes is a bit off. It's not like nicely, just subtly humanized. It's very over the top with how big a difference there is between the velocities and the notes. So I'm going to go in and go to functions, and I'm going to go to MIDI transform, and I'm going to go to, where is it? Fixed velocity. I'm just going to set them all to 100 first of all. And then, because I don't actually want them all to be the same volume, I do want them humanized. I'm going to go back in, I'm going to go functions, MIDI transform, where's humanize? There's humanize, and now I'm going to humanize it. And you can see The differences between them isn't as extreme now. We don't have any blue in there. We've got oranges and yellows and nothing extreme, like really bright reds or really blue blues. You know, if I want to bring down the volume of something, I can go back in and bring down the volume of individual notes later, or I can use automation. But at this stage, I don't want these to be all over the place velocity-wise. It's going to make my life harder if I have to go in and boost the velocity of individual notes. I'm going through like, oh, that one's really stupidly quiet for no reason, and it needs to not be. So now we go through and we decide what we like about the MIDI pattern, about the actual drum pattern itself, and what we don't like, and we change anything we don't like. So I want something here. Let's try another kick. I mean, it works, but I'm not sure about it. I think actually what I might want to do is I need to find that. Where's the open hi-hat? There it is. And then to a closed one. Ah, no. I've done the wrong one open there. Try that. Yeah. I think I like that better. Yeah, I don't like this fill here. Let's make that a side stick one. Let's get rid of that. Let's make this instead just another snare shot. Yeah. That's way too much. Let's take out some of these snares first of all. Ooh, that one might be a bit better. We'll stick with that, I think. That works alright. We'll stick with that. I could go in and do even more work on this and change even more bits, you know, add in even more sections, but then that would take up most of the video, and there is something else I want to show you next that would be the next step. So I'm just going to join all of this up to make my life easier. Just select it all and Command J, and that joins up all your MIDI parts, because the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to separate out all of the different drums I have so that I can more easily go in and change up the sounds. So to do this, you just go to right click on your MIDI part, and it's right here. Separate by note pitch is the function you want. You do that and it separates by note pitch. Now the main reason for that even existing, I would say, is so that you can do this with drums, because I don't really know why you would want to do it with any other instrument, really. When you're mixing drums, you want to be able to mix the individual drums, so it's great for that, except that when you do it like this creates tracks that are sort of like sub-tracks of this track. So if you then go to just change the volume, it's going to change the volume on all of them. The easiest way to fix that is to then just bounce these to an audio track, and it will create a new track, and you'll see this one. When I move that, it's an actual new track. But we're not going to do that yet for this, because what we just want is all of the individual MIDI files. So that now I can start creating new tracks. So I'm just going to create a couple down here quickly. And currently they're on the E piano, but what I want is my sampler. Where's my sampler? Oh, there it is. It's already, I've selected it previously. And I want the sampler because the next thing I would then do is I want to change out my drum sounds. So I want to find my kick. Where's my kick? Is this my kick? That's my kick. There we go. So I want that MIDI. I'm going to copy it down and put that on here. I'm going to call this kick so that I don't get confused. And I'm going to go and find now a kick sample that I actually quite like and that I think will work well in the track. Either as the actual final kick sample, the only kick that will be on the final track, or this might be a supplementary kick sample. I might leave in the original Logic Drummer kick sometimes if I think that combining it with another one actually makes it sound good enough. Oh, I've got a bunch of new credits there. Okay, so it needs to be beefier, I think, my kick. I want a beefier kick. So actually, that one's got potential. I just want to drag this over to my sampler. I'm just going to go zone per file. Boom, it's in. I'm just going to make sure that it's not trying to cut anything off, because sometimes it'll put it in and it'll cut things off at the start or the end of my sampler, and I don't want that. Right, so the one problem we have here is that this sample, as it's telling me here, is a G0 note originally, and the kick is originally played on the C1 key in the kit. Obviously, that means it's pitching this up. It's pitching this sample up quite a bit, actually, in the track there. So I'm just going to bring it down to that G that it's meant to originally be on. That sounds good, personally. Okay, so that's that done. Quite often what I will do is maybe even add another kick sample to that. But for now, that'll do. That works well. Okay, on with the mission. Now we need a snare. So where's my snare? Ooh, the snare can pose a problem because obviously it's separated by note pitch. And if you notice when we went in before, I was selecting different types of played snare because different keys on the keyboard were different types of snare shots. So it wasn't all just one snare sound. So we're just going to deal with the snare center here, first of all, because it would take me a lot longer to sort out finding maybe a sample pack with a snare with all the different parts in that sound right, or I might swap out some of these other snare sounds that we've got here, like how we had the snare side stick sound. Where it's used a snare rim shot or a snare side stick, I might not actually use a snare. I might use a click sound, a clap sound, some sort of percussive element. Wherever the snare center is, I probably would use a snare sound. So we're going to just use the snare center for this now in the video. But those are some other things that I would do, is I wouldn't necessarily replicate, oh, I'm going to go find a perfect snare rim shot now for this. You know, I'm going to use whatever sample I like best for each part in terms of what it's doing in the percussion. Now let's put in snares. That's quite snappy, so I'm going to sync that local so I can put this in. I'm going to put this little snappy dude in. I'm going to make them a little longer again as well, because our snare has got a bit more of a tail on it this one. I'm not going to lie, this personally is not the combo I would necessarily pick. I think that snare is missing some sort of medium range sound. Ooh. I'm just going to do this just to experiment now. I'm going to do another one. See if it's fine. Actually sounds kind of cool. What do we think? Does it sound naff and terrible? Do you hate it? Bring in my EQ. So, I'm just going to play you what we originally had. Versus what we've got with all of those bits just added in. Just that is that original thing that we made on the drummer track, but we've got a much more interesting final drum part there. Now I would go through and I would change even more of these sounds, and what I'm probably going to do, because I would do it now but I don't really have time to do it now because I've got a gig this evening that I need to get out to, so I'm going to come back another day and I'm going to film another section for my Buy Me a Coffee people, and I'll go through actually changing even more of these drum sounds, and we'll see what we can create exactly by changing out even more of the sounds, because I really want to get rid of those cymbals. I hate those cymbal sounds. One of my most hated things about the Logic drummer is actually that a lot of those cymbal samples that the drummer uses, I hate them. They're really naff. But yeah, that already sounds a lot better. So that's how I get the most out of the Logic drummer, and I hope that this maybe helped share some tips with you if you are also a Logic user and you struggle with drum parts. Try throwing a Logic drummer on and then just going in and altering stuff like this. It will also help you slowly to just get better, to get to know drum parts, and then you'll be able to build your own better as well. It's a good tool for using to learn more about building up a drum part. If you enjoyed this video, then maybe you want to hit that subscribe button, or maybe you aren't sure yet and you need to see some more content, in which case check out some of the other videos on this channel, because I know that subscribing is a big decision and I wouldn't want you to rush into anything now, would I? As I said before, my Buy Me Coffee is linked in the description below, where that extra video will be, and if you want to follow me on all my socials, they're also linked in the description below as well. That is everything for this week, guys. I shall see you guys next week with another video of some sort.
Now I'm still yawning, but it's full speed ahead. 'Cause something about how you can sleep when you're dead.